let's make some easy cards using our mini iron. It really couldn't be easier, so let's get started. So I'm going to work on these 6x6 card bases from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm going to use 2 napkins that I got from Ninny's Napkins. The lavender one is called Lovely Lavender, and the other one is called Birthday Callie. Now, I'm going to take those card bases and put them in these pockets. This is just folded copy paper that I folded over, taped up the edges to make a pocket. I tend to be a messy creator. This keeps the backside of my cards a little bit cleaner. So we are going to use the iron decoupage technique to fast forward and make the card making process really easy. And in order to do that, what you need to do is put a coat of adhesive, wet adhesive, like the fluid matte medium that I am using. This is from Liquitex. You want a nice, even coat on your base. Now, I'm doing it on a card base. If you did this on a canvas board or an art journal page, this would work as well. So it's not just limited to card bases. I'm putting a nice even coat here. I don't want any ridges. I want it nice and smooth. You can use Mod Podge. I don't like Mod Podge as well. So here's my mini iron. It is an off-brand that I got from Amazon, and it works perfectly well. You can also use a regular iron. So let's prepare the napkins. And I'm just going to use my guillotine cutter to cut. I want the full quadrant of the napkin. And I chose the napkin for these cards that I could use that it is complete quadrant with a little bit of overlap. Now, I said these napkins come from Ninny's Napkins, and while these are some of her brand new ones and should be in stock, napkins come and go, but there is always a plethora of great napkins. Now, if you don't have a guillotine cutter, as I do, you can use scissors. You can also use a rotary cutter with a metal ruler and get a nice straight edge. So what you need to do now is pull off the 2 excess plies of napkins. Don't throw these away. We are actually going to use one of these later on to finish our cards. So I'm just peeling it off. If you have a hard time peeling them off at this stage, just put a little bit of matte medium or adhesive on your finger and just pull it off. So there we have our 2 bases. Now, this needs to be completely dry. So if you open it up and heat it or try to dry it from the underside as well as the top side, you will speed up the heating process or the drying process. Now, here I am using the full quadrant. There's a little bit of overlap, and that's what I want. I want the napkin to cover the entire card base. And that's making this super easy because I don't have to cut it to size or worry about any of that. I'm putting a layer of parchment paper on here and then working from the inside out using my mini iron to adhere. Now, what happens as soon as that fluid matte medium or your Mod Podge gets heated, it kind of reactivates, becomes wet again, and acts as an adhesive. The benefit of doing this as opposed to just putting down the matte medium and then putting the napkin on without ironing it is this will eliminate most, if not all, the wrinkles. So you get a perfectly wrinkle-free application, which for a card I prefer. Journal page, I'm a little less picky, but again, you can use this same technique on an art journal page on a canvas board. So here I'm just checking the edges and putting a little bit more heat on if I'm finding it's not adhering completely. So when you put that matte medium on or that Mod Podge on, you want to make sure that you didn't miss any places, because if you miss any place, that then the napkin will not adhere to it and it will bubble and come up. So now we have the overlap. Once it's cool, we want to cut that off. Now you could cut it with scissors, but I prefer and recommend cutting it with either an emery board that I got at Dollar Tree or these sanding blocks that you can get very inexpensively at any home reno store. And actually, I prefer the sanding block. It works faster and easier. I'm just going around and I'm cutting off all those excess, even the little bits. And then I'm again checking the edges and reapplying any heat to make sure that everything is down. So there we go, wrinkle free. So let's cut off the edges of this one. And that is basically the technique of the iron-on decoupage. We use the full size, full quarter of the napkin, and we use the iron decoupage technique, and that just simplifies it. We have 2 cards here, which can be ready to go at this point. You don't need to do any of the things that I'm doing now. You could just stamp on a sentiment or just write inside the card, and away you go. Add some things to this, and I like to overpaint or alter the colors a little bit, make it a little more painterly. And to do that, I want to seal this. I want to turn this into a non-porous surface. So I am applying a coat of my fluid matte medium here. There's no shine. It's completely matte and it turns it into a non-porous surface. So again, it needs to dry. Now I'm going to bling out this one. This is a birthday one, and I'm going to use this Tacky When Dry gel, and I'm going to apply it through this stencil, which I've taped down, and I'm just going to add another tape down so I get a nice even application of this medium. Now this medium, it takes a while for it to dry, and it's better that you don't use a heat tool with it. So it takes time to dry. And since I'm not patient, I want to get the video done and I want to move forward. I am timing this now. I'm applying this and then I'm going to run some errands, knowing full well when I come back, this will be completely dry and I can move to the next step. So there's a little bit of overlap along the edge there. So I'm just going to scrape that off and then set this aside to dry. If I was doing this mass making it, I would apply this medium all through. Now I've moved on to the lavender card. And I'm going to do a lot of overpainting here with the lavender. I'm going to alter the colors a little bit. But the first step, I'm taking my liner brush and I've got some white gesso and I'm just kind of dabbing, making I'm not sure what they call, they're not petals on lavender, but the points of the lavender. Just kind of globbing it on. And this is going to make this look like I have painted this lavender, as opposed to just gluing a napkin down. Now, remember, you can not do this. It is absolutely lovely and can be used as a card without this step. I'm just kind of value added if you want to take it to the next step. I love overpainting. So now, while that white gesso is still wet, I have some dioxazine purple, some violet, some pink paints, and I'm adding that to it. And this is, the colors that were there, but maybe a little bit changed. So if I was mass making this, everyone's going to look a little bit different depending on which color I dip my brush into at which time. And seriously, I'm just dipping it into the paints and then tapping it, making the lavender shaped, I guess the buds, for lack of a better word here. So this one I'm just keeping in real time, and then when I do the second and third one, I'm going to speed up the video. This is a very easy process, and I hope you give this kind of thing a try because it really will elevate your finished product. Now, this napkin, which is called Lovely Lavender, is the size of these three, is perfect for this card. But if I wanted, I could water cut each individual one out, and that could be on an ATC or on a smaller art journal book if you had. So while it's the same napkin, I could use it in a multitude of different ways. And I love, love, love lavender, so I will get lots of use out of this one. This one I'm turning into an Easter card, and it's going to go in the mail and be delivered. And now when you are over painting any napkin, you can pick and choose exactly how much of that you are going to overpaint. Basically here I'm doing the lavender and the flowers and a little bit on the bows. On the birthday card that I make, I just overpaint the balloons and I use different medium. I'm not going to use acrylic paint with it. So here I'm just moving to the second one. I'm applying the white gesso, and then I'm going to come and apply the colors. Deep violet, magenta, dioxazine purple. And as you see here, I'm putting the white gesso on both of these bunches of lavender, and then I'm doing the color. I don't have to wait for the white gesso to dry at all. This makes the colors brighter. It also gives that painterly effect, so it's looking like I've actually painted this as opposed to glued something on. Bit of a cheat, but you really can't go wrong. This is so easy. And that was my promise to you that these would be easy cards. Now that that is dry, I am putting some dioxazine purple on the Ranger blending foam, and I'm just going to edge my card. This is giving a little wisp of purple on here, and it just frames the card. It's a little bit of a finishing touch that I like to do. Now, this napkin had that border on it, which I fully capitalized on. If it didn't have a border, I could use a stencil and stencil on a border at in that place. But if you were going to do that, then you need to seal the napkin. Wet paint will wick into a napkin that has not been sealed. Now, this could have been an art journal page, a 6x6 art journal page that would have been perfectly lovely. But I like doing it sometimes on these card bases because it becomes usable art. So back to the birthday card. I'm going to take some of the Crafter's Workshop foil transfer sheets, this one in red, and this one I've already previously used, and you get lots of use out of this. You put it on and you rub. And where the tacky when dry medium is, we'll pull it off and you've just added some bling. Now these foil transfer sheets from the Crafter's Workshop, they have so much bling to them. They just add that little extra something something to whatever project you're doing. So I'm just going to reapply it where there may be little gaps, and that part's done. Now, the only part of the napkin here that I'm going to overpaint is the balloons and the hat. I do a little bit of shading on the creature himself. Is he a hamster? Is he a guinea pig? I don't know. So I'm just using here, instead of acrylic paints, I am using my Inktense pencils. I'm just activating them with water and painting over, and then adding a little bit of white gesso sometimes to tone down the colors. Again, this is totally optional. This is something I like to do, but once you've ironed this on, it is beautiful and it can go just the way it is. Or you can change it up. I deepen the colors. I typically like them a little bit brighter than what I get from the napkin. I like using my Inktense pencils. They're very much, they act, while they are permanent, they act like watercolor. So you get that watercolory effect, and it's very translucent. Um, whereas a lot of some acrylic paints are opaque and block out what's underneath it. This just kind of adds to it, adds a layer of depth. So here, if the person you were sending this to, their favorite color was purple or magenta, you could just add a coat of white gesso, white it out, and then put the color that you prefer on top. Here I'm just extending the watercolor base that this creature was standing on, just so it fills the bottom of this card. I do a lot of overpainting on my art journal pages when I've used napkins. So if you like that process, watch a few of my other videos, and some of those might get a more of an explanation about what I'm doing, or more of an you just get more of an idea if you watch more videos seeing me doing it. So here I went around with the purple. Now I'm going around with black to frame it. So I like using the double color. It just adds to it. And this one, I'm just using black to edge it. Black paint on my Ranger blending foam. Now remember those excess plies that I said don't throw them out? Here's a use. You can stamp your sentiments, pre-made sentiments from your card, from your stamp sets, or using letter stamps like I have here. I'm just simply going to stamp it out on the napkin. Now, you're going, why would I do it on the napkin? Well, if you stamp and it makes a mess, you can just keep stamping and avoid it without having to clean it up. My card base or my art journal page might have some texture. That makes stamping directly onto it a little bit difficult. So here I can do it worry-free, risk-free. It's on work on a flat surface. I've got black paint on the blending foam, and I'm just stamping it. Here I've stamped it a second time to get a better one, and I get to choose which one works best. And then I can position it. I can hold it over my card or your art journal page and figure out where to put it. Now I'm just taking a liner brush with some water, and I'm going to water cut the word celebrate here out. Let it soak in. Peel that off. And when I glue this down, the white parts will be completely clear and you won't see them. And the only thing you're going to see is the letters. Now that E had a little bit of extra black paint around it, so I'm just going to cut it off and show you how you can fix a mistake. So I'm going to glue this down. Make sure this is completely dry if you've used acrylic paint, because if it's not, you will smear it if you go to glue it down. I'm using my Fluid Matte Medium. I'm going to put some of that underneath, put my sentiment on it, and brush, being very gentle because napkins become fragile when they're wet. And then that E, I have that other sentiment one that I stamped out. I'm just going to cut out the E and I'm able to piecemeal it in and nobody's the wiser that I made a mistake. Easy peasy. And you're using up something that otherwise you'd be throwing out. And before I'm done, I'm just grabbed my Posca pen. I'm going dash, dot, 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 dash, dot, 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 all around both of these cards. Again, just a little bit of a finishing touch, completely optional. You could also have splattered this with gold or silver if you wanted to. And there we have the finished card, and there's the original napkin. You can see how the colors are brighter and bolder. And there's the birthday one with the original. Again, brighter, bolder colors, a little bit of extra bling added. Thank you so much for joining me. Got some close-ups of the finished products. I hope you give this a try. Using the mini iron and using the full quadrant of a napkin makes card making super easy. Thanks for watching. Bye.